I have stayed away from this topic for a long time just because it doesn't feel fun to me to talk about the drama between Giovanni Reyna, Claudio Reyna, Danielle Reyna, the Berhalters, Ernie Stewart. It all makes me just sad to think about this national team and how soccer parents were at the bane of our existence during the World Cup when it should be all about the players and the fans. But I think it's at this point now where so much has happened that I do feel like I want to talk about it. I do feel like I want to say something about it because really everybody involved in this is shameful. Every action from almost every single person involved in this scandal, in this drama, should be ashamed of themselves. And there are a few key holdouts of people that can still hold their head up high. This should be one of the most amazing times for US fans, for people that are just getting into the sport, for people that watched the World Cup and saw a young, dynamic team that is going to be in their golden age for 2026. But instead, we're stuck thinking about a domestic violence incident that happened in 1991. We're stuck thinking about broken families that have backstabbed each other with blackmail. And this is no longer about the fans or the team. This is about people that have done bad things to each other. So instead of looking forward to 2026, all of us are stuck with this Shakespearean drama of what's ahead. For a quick recap of anyone that's wondering, at the World Cup, Giovanni Reyna, our best attacking midfielder, was told by Greg Berhalter that he was going to get limited minutes in the World Cup. Because of that, Giovanni Reyna then spent an alarming lack of effort in their warm-up games and in training. He had to apologize to the team accepted it, and tried to move on, but the damage was done. Now, a few days after the World Cup ended for the U.S., the coach, Greg Berhalter, was attending a leadership conference, and while he told a story about a unnamed player, it was very obviously about Gio Reyna. And while the comments were meant to be off the record, Greg Berhalter should have known that a national team head coach coming back from a World Cup, no matter the context of the conference, he really needs to hold his tongue there in respect to things that should be within the team. Now, in response to Greg's comments at the leadership conference, Gio Reyna's parents, Claudio Reyna and Danielle Reyna, told Ernie Stewart, the U.S. Soccer Federation sporting director, about a domestic violence that happened in 1991 between Greg Berhalter and his wife, Rosalind Berhalter, when they were just dating at the University of North Carolina. Ernie Stewart, upon hearing about this, took the news to his superiors at U.S. Soccer, who then hired an outside law firm to do an investigation on the domestic violence incident. And before long, everything blew up and became public knowledge. Now, across all of this and heightening the impact of what is happening, the families that are involved are intertwined and have been for the last 30 years. Claudio Reyna and Greg Berhalter grew up together in northern New Jersey. They played on a youth soccer team under Claudio Reyna's father. They played in high school together. They played in 2 World Cups together on the U.S. national team. And their wives, who this is also between Rosalind Berhalter and Danielle Reyna, were teammates at UNC and have been best friends for the last 30 years. Ernie Stewart, too, the U.S. Soccer sporting director, has also been intertwined in these 2 families for as long as we can remember back to the World Cups. Now, in my opinion, apart from Rosalind Berhalter and Ernie Stewart, basically everyone should be ashamed of their actions here. First, the lack of effort from Gio Reyna was completely disrespectful to his teammates, his coaching staff, and I would even say the players that narrowly missed the roster to go to the World Cup. Imagine you're someone like Paul Arriola, and the player that took your place or is in that spot showed an alarming lack of effort in training. Next, speaking at a private event to a bunch of strangers about something that was between the team and themselves was genuinely foolish from Greg Berhalter. It should also go without saying that the abuse between Greg Berhalter and Rosalind Berhalter is genuinely reprehensible, and this shouldn't be missed in this story. But at the same time, it's so sad that this happened 30 years ago. I'm assuming that all parties have been over it, but now it has to be brought up again. And the pain of that moment and the shame of that moment has to be lived again by people that have worked really hard to get over it. The elder Reynas should absolutely feel shame. And earlier this month, it was reported that Claudio Reyna had been texting Ernie Stewart and Brian McBride. Also, Brian McBride is now out at the U.S. Soccer Federation, We don't know what's happened there. He's out after only 2 years being in the position. I'm assuming something else big has happened, or he's just done with this. And the fact that we have soccer parents at the highest level, something that would be inappropriate at a U12 tournament, is happening to Claudio Reyna and Gio Reyna right now on the national team. For a formal USMNT captain and a current director of Austin FC to do this is unbecoming of his position, and he should honestly be embarrassed of himself. These kind of actions seem to be a part of a pattern for Claudio Reyna, as we found out last week that this happened at the U17 World Cup as well, and Claudio Reyna had been texting the coach at the time regarding the treatment of his son at the U17 World Cup. Of course, none of this is as bad as the way that Danielle Reyna went about this. And speaking of the incident that was not her story to tell, has to be painful for the Berhalters. Specifically right now, I'm not talking about the revelation of abuse, but the way that Danielle went about telling it, as it was revealed without Rosalind's consent. In her own statement, she even said she didn't tell Ernie Stewart out of concern for her friend Rosalind. It doesn't seem to matter to her that this wasn't her story to tell, or even that for 3 decades, she's been best friends with the person that she's telling the story about. The only thing that seemed to matter to Danielle Reyna in this situation was hurting the Berhalters. That was enough for her to drag her family and the Berhalter family through the mud. What she did was spiteful and vindictive. Part of Danielle's own statement again reads like she thinks her own family is the victims in this situation. The only victims here are Rosalind Berhalter and her children, who have had to live through this incredibly uncomfortable situation. And as for the others, we'll see when the investigation ends, but it is not looking good for almost everyone involved. Claudio Reyna's future might be in jeopardy because now he is also under investigation as part of this whole bubble, because the US has identified inappropriate behavior towards other members of their staff, most likely from Claudio Reyna. There are also extremely large questions to answer for Gio Reyna as a player, because no matter if this has been a trend up until now from his club at Borussia Dortmund or the US men's national team, not giving your best effort at a World Cup is a red flag no matter what age or skill level. I hope the first time that he's back in the US locker room, it's absolutely fine and everything can go back to normal. But he does have something to atone for. More than anything, like I said at the beginning of this video, it's just absurd that us as fans have to live through this. That we have to go through a situation where a small clique, a small incestuous clique of US men's national team players from 30 years ago have been burning the building down when this should be one of the most exciting times to be a fan. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time on It's Called Soccer. Peace.